Imagine this, you're dozing off in class when you're suddenly summoned to another world. This seemingly cute but actually evil princess wants to use you for war, but you don't have any magic skills. She decides to throw you in the demon forest, and you get eaten alive by goblins. Yes, that's Kento Kokubon's frustrating life. On the verge of his death, the boy discovers his mysterious abilities, being able to command summoning and healing magic. Kento goes on a David Goggins training arc, working day and night to improve his abilities, so that he can save his friends. The talentless virgin, Kento Kokubon, cannot impress the princess who summoned him. He is called a fraud, a trash, a waste of space. You get the idea. Kento's useless dumbass plans to exact revenge against the princess, but I don't think bro is doing anything with that wee looking haircut. Finding himself surrounded by many goblins in the forest, Kento runs full speed, but only bumps into more of them. The hungry goblins are ready to rip apart his flesh, biting into Kento's arm. Kento curses the goblins, as if that's going to do anything, and tries to run away. Kento is quickly cornered again, despairing at his situation, because goblins are supposed to be level 1 monsters. Kento is trash and just an NPC who can't take down anything. The goblins begin to devour his flesh, ripping apart every inch of his body. Kento doesn't want to die, but things are looking grim. A few hours before his demise, the entire school of students was summoned to an unknown location. There was nothing urban around here, and everyone, including the teachers, was summoned. Greeting them from up high was Princess Camellia Reisenberg of the Reisenberg lands. A fat flob tried to square up against Camellia, testing her limits. She reminds him that he's just fodder trash, and that all of them will be forced to follow her commands, or else they will die. Receiving that kind of serious threat, Kento thought that Funa stupidly got on the princess's wrong side. Funa acts like a stuck-up child, and is immediately put in his place by one of the soldiers. She reminds Funa of his situation. One girl asks permission, and asks if they could return to their world, if they completed the tasks. Asakawa gained the support of all her classmates. Princess Camellia tells them that summoning magic doesn't have a return feature. This means these guys are going to get enslaved here, without a return ticket back. Camellia is interested in testing their magical talents. The magic testing is supervised by many mages, who require the students to touch the blue crystal ball. The ball is capable of gauging one's skill. Hachimori deduces that the bracelet everyone is forced to wear is to control their magic from overflowing. Asakawa touches the magic ball, illuminating it powerfully and hinting that she has incredible talent. Camellia is glad that she's found someone helpful. The popular kid, Takayama, also possesses the fire attribute skill, but is not so confident about it. Funa, a thick head in the literal sense, arrogantly puts his hand over the globe. To no one's surprise, the ball doesn't illuminate. He possesses lower tier magic at best. Finally, it's Kento's turn. He's anticipating great results, thinking he will be the next isekai protagonist with a secret cheat ability. After launching a highly corny introduction of his ability, Kento tries to make the ball shine. In a twist of fate, it turns out that he's even a worse flop than Funa. Kento tries again, but nothing happens. The mages are astounded that Kento is a generational failure and the worst summoned student. Funa laughs at him, while Camellia orders his weak ass to go wherever he pleases. Asakawa pleads with the princess not to abandon Kento. However, Camellia clarifies that sending Kento back to their world would imply that they'll get stuck here forever. Asakawa then requests Camellia to let him stay with the group. Camellia doesn't entertain such a demand, since she doesn't like useless NPCs. Camellia gives Kento a chance by sending him to the Tempest Forest. She thinks that if he survives the forest and enters the town, she'll consider recruiting him. And that's how it all started. Kento's mission turned out to be a horrifying one. He was being eaten alive by the goblins, begging for a chance at life. Suddenly, the goblins are attacked by a bunch of skeletal monsters. These creatures lay waste to the goblin horde. Kento is incapable of comprehending what is happening. He wakes up after a while, realizing that he's got a bunch of skeletal warriors protecting him. Kento is astounded and questions what happened. The skeletons telepathically communicate that Kento is their master and they're to protect him with their might. The boy confirms, asking if he summoned them. Reinhardt, one of the skeletons, agrees. The fallen skeletal knights once swore allegiance to their master. They couldn't protect their previous master and, regrettably, were cursed from moving on. Kento remembers being called trash only yesterday, and doesn't know how he got the ability. Reinhardt tells him that Kento possesses unique necromancy powers because he can summon them without conscious thought. Kento wonders if the crystal ball refused to shine because he possessed a dark attribute ability. Reinhardt explains that the ball should have been colored black in that case. Bastin, the unit commander, explains that Kento possesses both light and dark magical attributes. Thus, the mana crystal couldn't illuminate and remain the default. Kento thinks that it might be true, because he remembers his body getting torn apart by the goblins. Kento believes his abilities are broken as hell if he heals himself on the verge of death and summons 10 skeletal monsters simultaneously. He thinks that he'll have an easy job moving through the forest. However, there's a slight problem with Kento's theory. The skeletal monsters inform him about the higher level monsters ahead. They require magic stones to be strengthened. Reinhardt recommends that 3 skeletal creatures collect the magic stones from the other 7. This way, he'll have 3 strong monsters instead of 10 weak ones. Kento would also free the remaining monsters to ascend to the afterlife. Reinhardt wants to stay behind to honor the will of those defeated. Kento selected Reinhardt, Bastin, and Fred as his 3 warriors. The rest of them were to be sent to the afterlife. Kento whines and nobody wants to see his annoying face, so let's skip it. The skeletal monsters are finally liberated, leaving behind 18 magic stones, some of which they had also collected from defeating the goblins. Kento questions the process of absorbing magic rocks. He is told to visualize the mental image of the process. Kento thinks that he's ready, and desires to make Reinhardt heavy and shining like tungsten. Bastin is to become strong like titanium, while Fred is chosen to become agile. In a flash, the 3 monsters are engulfed in magical energy. The level 1 bear, dripless skeletons have now turned into badass OGs, who look like they've been mewing for decades. Kento thinks that he's already afraid of them. Reinhardt and the others all look different, as if they underwent a rarity level change. It's kind of like he turned them into ultra-rare characters. Kento sees a bunch of goblins scattering away. He investigates and finds many terrifying ogres scavenging the goblin corpses that were left behind. Reinhardt and the others are prepared to show Kento their abilities. The 3 musketeers launch themselves into battle. Reinhardt is casually having fun and flexes his strength during battle. Mr. Skyndiana Bones is out here facing Evil Rock. The ogre is overwhelmed as Reinhardt shatters its arms in a battle of strength. He's never going to the gym again. The skeletons have grown so powerful that they annihilate the ogres with their agile attacks. Reinhardt also seems to have developed a personality apart from acquiring strength. The 3 servants bow before their master, waiting for Kento's command. Kento is requested to name their weapons. After giving each of them names, Reinhardt tells Kento that he set out on a suicidal journey in the demon forest. Kento is shocked because he wasn't aware of the demons. The demon forest isn't some place one can easily traverse without escorts. Kento realizes that the princess sent him on a mission to die. Kento asks if the princess has any plans to go to war. Reinhardt is intrigued after learning they were summoned to the kingdom's center. They wonder if Camellia is interested in gunning for the throne and overthrowing the current powers. That also means Kento and his peers are getting dragged in the mud for her ideals. Kento's monsters spot a travel carriage in the distance. Even though a beast attacked the carriage, Kento is advised to change outfits and use whatever cargo he can. Reinhardt also finds the enslavement bracelet. Kento is shocked because this is the same bracelet all of the students were forced to wear. Reinhardt explains that the bracelet's purpose isn't to suppress magic power, but rather to make the servant obey commands. Kento grows even more annoyed by the princess. Reinhardt tells Kento that the princess is manipulating his entire class. Kento wants to help his friends, even though it's a difficult task. The skeletons think that the princess requires their use, which means she won't hurt his classmates for the time being. The only reason she even dropped Kento is because of his uselessness. The skeletons assure their master that he's the most capable magician in the entire kingdom, or even the continent. Kento wants to remove his friend's bracelets. The skeleton idiot trio warns him that something like that can't happen so quickly, and light and dark magic can't accomplish such a task. Something Kento can do is to use his dark magic to conceal magic items. This way, he was able to hide the items of the carriage. Kento still thinks his powers are a cheat. Kento can hide his servants in the shadows, and even stealthily move in the shadows on his own. While they were traversing to Volzard, his 3 monsters destroyed every creature, allowing their abilities to be further nourished. During the 4th day in the forest, Kento could finally see the city of Volzard. He thinks that it'll be light work to just go inside undetected. Reinhardt warns him that it will create trouble later. Kento wonders if he can act like he came out of the forest after risking his life. He adopts the crappiest acting skills, acting like he's on the verge of death, and falls to the ground. The guards immediately come running towards the fainted boy. They rescue him, even though this little rat is just deceiving them. Kento acts like he has regained consciousness inside his room. One of the guards, who desperately needs a new barber, asks if he's okay now. Kento acts like he doesn't even know where he is. The guard informs him that he's arrived safely. Kento told them that he lost his companions along the way. The guard consoles him and explains that he's actually the head of the 3rd garrison. Karatsuda asks what Kento does in day-to-day life. Kento makes an excuse that he was in a carriage as an apprentice to healing magic. Karatsuda is impressed that the boy is capable of healing magic at such an age. Karatsuda wants to take him to the guild's office at once. Kento agrees. Arriving in the city, Kento is dazzled by the people's appearances and the differences between the two worlds. Karatsuda tells him about the old town and the new town. The place is vast. Kento wonders if the roads are maintained via magic. Karatsuda confirms that they wouldn't look so clean without it. Arriving at the guild, Kento wonders if it is for adventurers and talented people. Karatsuda tells him that the boy can take on easier jobs that are more suited to him. Kento introduces himself by name to the receptionist, who is an old fart, and tells him to sign up. Kento is actually stunned when he sees the evil eye crystal, the same mana-gauging crystal that had fostered him a terrible reputation before. Kento thinks his crappy luck has led him to the unfortunate device again. He wonders if things will be different now. Kento touches the crystal ball, but unfortunately, his results don't even change by much. The receptionist tells him that he will start at the bottom-most rank, and if he enters the demon forest, he will surely die. The receptionist is floored when Karatsuda tells him that the boy has survived the demon forest. Shocked, he questions how he survived without magical power or escorts. Kento reflects that he's actually got 3 very powerful escorts hiding behind him. A beast girl takes him by surprise and asks if he's a newbie. Jillick is cautious of Kento's perversion, while Mule keeps him at bay. Kento introduces himself in kind and states that he was following merchants until getting attacked by monsters and surviving the demon forest. Kento states that he's fine and receives a heavenly feeling with her pillows. Jillick wants to end his life by harassing his sister. Mule introduces Kento to the quest board and then thinks that he should aim for jobs requested by farms. Karatsuda wonders if that is really okay. Kento tells him that he can do picking work. Karatsuda asks the receptionist if Kento can live. The receptionist asks if the boy has enough money to sustain himself. Unfortunately, he can't use his powers to take out the valuables from his storage magic. That's how the boomer lent him a hefty amount to return in the future. Even though Kento received this much in total, he doesn't know its value. Amanda, the inn owner, welcomes them. Karatsuda requests a place for the boy to stay. Amanda asks if he has enough money. Kento states that he couldn't apply for a job and borrowed money. Amanda is a lovely lady who allows him to live until the start of the following month. The total with rent and meals included for the month will cost the boy 3,000 helts in total. Karatsuda takes his leave after taking care of Kento's basic needs. Kento meets Melissa, a little girl who doesn't like him from the start. Kento hears Amanda talking about dungeons, intriguing him. Amanda strictly advises the boy never to dive into the dungeons, no matter what. Melissa is told to show him around. Kento accompanies her and asks if the dungeon poses much danger. Melissa basically tells him to KYS if he's interested in going. Melissa shows him his room and leaves. Kento observes that he's got the bare minimum for the time being. He rests on the bed, his thoughts muddling him. The skeletal creatures explain that they're actually in the Republic of Landspurt, instead of the Kingdom of Reisenberg. In the time that they were journeying in the forest, the country had been divided in 2. Kento is shocked, because this means Volzard might be attacked. Kento asks Bastin and Fred for advice on the matter, and both of them share that the city has expanded much more. The current Volzard is much better than the one they had seen in their lifetime. Kento wonders if that implies there is a good leader. His thoughts hammer Kento, because he doesn't want to fight his own classmates in the outbreak of war. The skeletal knights emphasize that he's going to need way more magical training to be able to master his abilities. Kento tasks Fred with analyzing the kingdom's aggressive situation. He orders Bastin to oversee Volzard, and Reinhardt prioritizes protecting him. The 3rd day after he starts working, Kento wakes up and does his job, which seems simple, but is really tough for his frail body. He was always exhausted and found himself healing constantly to avoid muscle soreness. He meets Dino, who has been working with Kento on his picking job. Dino has severe back pain because he's a fossil who survived the extinction of the dinosaurs. Kento tells him that he knows some healing magic. Kento proceeds to use his healing ability, making the older man feel like new. The guy literally walks around upright, like he's just been reborn. Reinhardt praises Kento's command over healing magic and thinks that he might possess the best healing abilities in the nation. A week passed quickly. Dino's relationship with Kento progressed. Kento remembers his terrible relationship with his parents back in Japan, and at this point, he's really wondering whether he should return to his previous world. Fred concludes his investigation and tells him that Camellia and his friends are still in the exact location. Fred thinks that while his classmates are receiving selective treatment, the class president is deemed a saint and boasts high magical talent. Kento asks for an update regarding Camellia's plans. He asks Bastin about the Lord of Volzard. Claus Volzard is a man who became a lord in the place of his deceased brother. He was once an active adventurer and rejected people from being involved in shady business. The man is single-handedly responsible for transforming the state of the city. He's the kind of politician that you'd only read about in manga, absolute Giga Chad. Overall, Claus rated Kento highly, but right now, he still wants to be cautious. Kento sees Karatsuda and catches up with him. Bert, Karatsuda's friend, also talks to Kento. Kento is grateful for Karatsuda's support. Karatsuda is flushed and thinks that they should celebrate in a new restaurant. The cute maid in the restaurant seems to be more of a meal than the food itself. Kento thinks that Karatsuda acts like the average 14-year-old, despite being a grown man. Elaine asks about their newcomer. She learns about Kento's experiences in the Demon Forest. Kento gets stuff like he usually does every time. Karatsuda is out here jealous beyond hell because Kento's like a magnet to the chicks. Kento remembers a session with the other students in his class. He was a sleepyhead who always dozed off while the other classmates made fun of him. The entire class erupted in laughter, dunking on Kento. Bro got the whole gang laughing out here. Kento wakes up from his so-called nightmare. His monsters wonder if there is something wrong with him. Kento muses that his previous life was actually miserable and that he feels useful contributing to this world. Kento arrives at the guild to take on his subsequent request. He sees Mule and reminds her who he is. Mule is impressed that he got stronger after doing farm work. Jillick is still unforgiving when it comes to this pipsqueak. Jillick makes fun of Kento for not being able to use a weapon. Kento believes that this man is absolutely right on the money. The receptionist informs him that there is a combat training course if he's interested. Kento immediately signs up for the training course. After signing up, his monsters suggest that they can train him, but the boy declines because he certainly doesn't want to get smoked by his own summons. Arriving in the classroom, Kento sees a bunch of hooligans and thinks that it's similar to a school class. Manon, another F ranker just like him, introduces himself. The teacher enters the class and introduces himself as Donovan. Donovan emits an intimidating aura, reminding the students those weapons don't make a person powerful. He gives them an example of how quickly a person can find a gun disadvantageous if they're untrained in strength. Donovan reminds the students to only use weapons within their capabilities to become strong. After that, he taught them about the numerous weapons as well as their characteristics. He also provided them with a lecture on monster types. It was actually based on the instructor's personal experience encountering them. They were forced into a practical training session with wooden weapons. Kento and the others found themselves wasted, being so weak. Donovan sees Kento and wants him to join the next course as well. Kento isn't pleased and turns to his friends for support. However, just about all of them are so tired from their first experience that they no longer want to join the next course. Kento is left all to himself, realizing that his friends are basically quitting, including Manon. Kento is on his way home when a bunch of ugly thugs demand that he surrender his bag. Kento tells them that he doesn't really have anything on him. The dude who desperately needs a barber and a dentist tells him that he'll be in trouble then. Kento talks about the appearance of monsters, rambling as if the creatures appear in the city all the time. Then, just before their eyes, Reinhardt emerges as a brooding skeletal monster. The circus clowns run off, being scared shitless. Kento doesn't want others to find out he's a dark magician, which is why he allows them to run away. That night, Kento finds himself exhausted because of today's training session. Reinhardt is impressed because Kento isn't afraid to deal with the thugs. Kento claims that they were just irritating at most. Reinhardt also believes that losing one's composure is a fatal flaw during battle. Melissa comes to inform Kento about dinner. He tells her that he'll be there in a minute. Shockingly, this little girl delivers him a gut punch so powerful that he's on his knees. Melissa tells him that he's still too weak to go out in dungeons. She emphasizes that people stronger than him never return alive. Kento, for the time being, accepts even though Melissa is suspicious of his words. Kento enjoys delving into the delicious meal. While he's minding his own business, Amanda gets all up in his face for even thinking of going to the demon forest or even the dungeon. Kento lies to her, stating he doesn't have any plans to go. That night, Kento arrives in the demon forest using the shadow travel skill. Reinhardt tells him that they've prepared a training ground, especially for him. Kento is taught how to swing a sword. Reinhardt advises him to focus on his footing. Reinhardt also forced him to run carrying a heavy log. Kento worked hard in the morning and trained repeatedly with Reinhardt at night. He would only manage to get 3 hours of sleep each day. It was only because of his MVP healing skill that he could survive the harshness of the day. Kento arrives at the guild to meet Jillick so that he can ask for Mule. Jillick tells him that she's training for magic. Kento thinks that he'll definitely die if he keeps up with this many training classes. They arrive at the magic arena where Mule is focused on concentrating her magic. Mule utters an incantation and delivers a ferocious attack, impressing both Kento and Jillick. Kento asks Reinhardt if magic always requires an essay's worth of incantations to be used. Reinhardt tells him that it's correct, even though Kento thinks that it's inefficient, because then you'd be dead without killing any monsters. Reinhardt explains that Kento is an anomalous mage for being able to conduct magic without chatting a single word. Donovan, their combat instructor, catches Jillick and Kento just loafing around. He asks if they're here to observe, and thinks that they're trying to learn how to counter a magician's attack. Donovan passionately tells them that the easiest way to beat a magician is to attack while they're busy chanting. Kento thinks that this man's only piece of advice is to hit a thing really, really hard. Donovan drags Jillick into training Kento. Jillick, who is acting like a ferocious beast to Kento, is a pussycat when it comes to Donovan's instructions. Kento is glad and makes fun of him. Kento is told that the only way he could survive the Demon Forest incident again is to train his body. Without much choice, Kento gears up to fight Jillick. Donovan states that Jillick will only target Kento's armor. Jillick is confident in his abilities and ridicules Kento. The spectators around them wonder if the boy really survived the Demon Forest. They think that Jillick might be in trouble, which is giving Kento a weight of expectations that he doesn't really want to think about. Jillick challenges Kento to face him. Kento reflects that the results of his training with Reinhardt will finally shine. The fool charges headfirst in a forward attack. Jillick quickly counters the attack by shoving a fist in his face. Without even doing anything, Kento is knocked out of commission, while Jillick is left disappointed. Kento wakes up right next to Mule. He's embarrassed and apologizes to her. Kento doesn't know what led to Mule climbing on his bed. Mule explains that she ended up sleeping next to him after realizing he was also asleep. Kento is embarrassed because he ended up with negative 3000 aura after that generational L. Mule recommends that he doesn't exhaust himself and even offers to treat him in kind. Kento is surprised that Mule is doing him such a favor despite his loss. A warrior who seems like an adventurer comes up to him and encourages him to get stronger. The man even goes on to pay for his meal. Mule tells him that the man is very rich. Kento wonders who he is. It comes as no surprise that he's actually Claus, the ruler of the city Volzard. Kento is struck astonished, though he learned from Baston that Claus is a good person. Claus states that he knew about the boy's survival from the Demon Forest. Kento tells him that he's just lucky. Claus slams his fist and tells the boy just how important it is to put in effort to achieve what you want. Even though Kento claims that he doesn't have any talent for magic, Claus' penetrating eye sees a pool of magical talent inside the boy. Claus states that Kento will shine brighter than even his peers if he allows himself. Kento, after receiving such a supporting speech from a complete stranger, finds himself weeping. He had never been acknowledged or considered valuable, always being scolded by others. Claus had prior knowledge about the boy's lack of magical talent, and yet he wanted the boy to prevail. The princess, on the other hand, disposed of him in the Demon Forest. Kento had decided to ensure his classmates would also come to the city of Volzard. The following morning, Kento and his summons use shadow travel for stealthy travel. The cheat skill allows them to teleport in a flash of a second with ease. Lastok, the current city, is quite relaxed. It was built recently, and even though it is protected by walls, Kento and his summons can quickly move around, thanks to their skill. Funa, who is practicing his mana concentration, seems to have lost a ton of weight. Kento learns that the students aren't being fed meals if they perform poorly. In fact, Funa's current training isn't going so well either. Kento asks about the purpose of making clay balls. Reinhardt explains that enhancements are the most powerful to the knights. Funa receives the worst treatment, even getting tossed around for being trash. Reinhardt emphasizes that this is how the average student is treated. As for the popular kid in their class, he's considered the hero who is capable of using fire magic. The hero is considered someone with the highest magical power, while the woman accompanying him takes care of him. Kento finds himself jealous because of the special perks that the hero has. The hero claims that he has to become more vital for the sake of others. Kento and the others decide to spy on the saint. The saint, who is also their class president, boasts proficiency in healing magic. However, this can quickly become an exhausting job for her. She also has a personal assistant who takes care of her needs. Kento is the best healer according to his summons, because he can heal without chanting. Suddenly, a woman rushes inside with her son with an extreme favor. Even though it's already past the limit of the saint's daily magic, she still rushes to treat the boy. During the healing process, the boy's condition doesn't improve, but rather it is the saint who feels worse because of her exhausted mana. Kento decides to step in to help her using his shadow ability. He nurtures the boy back to total health, letting the saint earn all of the praise. The saint is glad, but she apologizes for being weak. She wants to heal more people, even though she heals people every day. The saint crumbles to exhaustion, earning her well-deserved rest for the day. Kento learns that she's been treating people the entire day. As a way to reward the class president, Kento heals her in secret. She wakes up immediately as if she is alarmed. The saint asks how long she slept and states that her fatigue vanished instantly. The assistant wonders if it is a result of leveling up as one uses more and more magic. Reinhardt shares that Kento made a major mistake by letting the saint overestimate her abilities. Kento thought that she should be able to heal herself. However, Reinhardt states that only the boy is even capable of performing such a feat. Reinhardt recommends returning from time to time so that he could heal in her place. Meanwhile, the hero's maid is busy tending to her in all the different ways. Shiria, the hero's assistant, comes to report to Camellia. Camellia has instructed Shiria to inherit the hero's child because of his powerful magic. Kento is intrigued by Shiria's background and tells Fred to search for her. Kento's supposed to spy on Camellia for any intel, but what he sees isn't helpful information for a mission. Instead, it's Camellia taking a bath. In the following few days, Kento and his skeletons continued their search around Camellia's castle. Kento was surprised that she trained so hard, despite being one of royalty. Even though Kido could hardly acquire any information from seeing her, he obviously couldn't stop peeping at Camellia. Reinhardt tells him that the princess is the only person who has knowledge relevant to summoning magic. Everything depends on how they handle her. Reinhardt strategizes that the only way to negotiate with Camellia is to first ensure his classmates escape. 3 problems concern them, the first of which is to get them out of the garrison, the second is to place them elsewhere, and the third is to watch out for a spy. Even though the city of Volzard did accept Kento's entrance, it wasn't likely for them to take refuge of 200 school students. Providing them a place to live and eat is also another problem. Kento thinks he should discuss this with Claus and gain his cooperation. Reinhardt suggests that they prolong the rescue mission. Reinhardt thinks that it is a good thing his classmates are already being trained under the princess. This way, they could help them build their strength in order to survive the demon forest with adequate strength. There's also the fact that training would enable them to work and earn money through jobs. Claus would see the 200 people as a potential resource. Kento thinks it's a great idea and accepts. Kento's training has resumed the same, and although there have been a bunch of improvements, he still gets defeated easily. Kento wants to continue training, but Reinhardt insists that he get some rest. Kento doesn't know what he should do, so he heads off to explore the eastern part of Volzard, a place teeming with women and children. Kento thinks he should explore the place diligently, because this city is his new home. He sees a weapons shop and takes notice of a broken sword. Reinhardt explains that broken weapons can sometimes be remade into new ones, without the additional costs. One customer is inspecting the fractured sword, even though he doesn't have any in his scabbard. Reinhardt claims that the man must have sold his weapon for money. The man eventually makes his purchase, leaving them curious as to what he would do with it. Kento and the others decide to observe the man for a while. Later, they see him inside a brothel. The man enjoys his own company, while Kento thinks about the premium cost of the place. The man, after glancing around, seems to be in anticipation of someone. He takes notice of another older man walking down the stairs. Using this moment, he takes out his blade and is about to kill the man. Kento extends his hand and makes him trip on the ground. He also yells at the man's intentions to kill someone. The rest of the men, who could really eat him alive if they wanted to, are there to beat this guy up. While he's getting beaten black and blue, Kento realizes that the woman is his target instead. While in his room, Kento wakes up. He's starting to pick up on a muscular physique due to consistent training. Melissa reminds this dumbass that he's still not ready because she's the ultimate Twitter hater that will always drag you down. Later, Kento sees Jillick and Mule, who think he's gotten stronger. Jillick calls him trash regardless. Mule wanted to see Kento's combat training session. Kento leaves to train, hoping to do his best. Kento arrives at the location and is greeted by another guy. They ask if he's some kind of knight or magician. Kento tells them he was a failure, drawing a particular look on the men's faces. They tell him there's nothing to worry about since they're all newbies in the same group. These guys are excellent and even encourage him to do his best. Donovan arrives to begin the combat training course. He is impressed by Kento's decision to pursue combat training since the rest of his class bailed out and ran away. Donovan tells everybody to suit up and calls out Kento. Kento is said to have a sparring match with any opponent. If he successfully defeats 3 people, he is allowed to go to the next class. The group of people who seem so inviting to him are revealed to be cheering on him because they think he's actually a failure and the easiest to beat. Kento tells Donovan to pick on his own, which is wrong because he picks Isaac, the strongest of them all. Kento is intimidated by the man and thinks he's about to get clapped all the way to earth. The rule is to hit your opponent's armor, and the only way for the battle to end is if the attack is strong enough in Donovan's eyes. Isaac thinks he's fighting an easy opponent, and this battle will be over in an instant. The fight begins with Isaac's forward advance. However, before he can even react, Isaac gets speed blitzed by Kento, defeating him in a single attack. Mule jumps in excitement for Kento's victory, while the other idiots are left totally shocked that he's capable of such strength. Kento reflects that his training with Reinhardt is actually starting to show its merits. He thinks that he would have lost to Isaac before, just like how he embarrassed himself against Jillick. Kento's next opponent is ready to face him. The man is already under peer pressure, realizing that he's supposed to be facing a failure, who's way too strong. The fight begins, but neither of them is advancing. Kento believes that his opponent is cautious because of his previous battle. Since they're at a standstill, Kento charges and makes his advance first. The man reacts with a wide swing, aiming at Kento's chest. Kento avoids his attack, leaving the man wide open to receive a brutal hit on his gauntlet. Kento receives his second W of the day, thanks to his impressive sword skill. Mule cheers for him while Jillick, the hater, calls it a mere coincidence or a fluke. Reinhardt reminds him that he's still got one more opponent to beat, so he shouldn't be overconfident. Kento's final opponent is Colt, who's relatively fast and doesn't even use a shield for battle. Kento doesn't like his vibes. Colt's random swinging makes it hard for Kento to get a proper read on it. He doesn't know what's coming for him next. Colt swung a forward thrust, an attack that nearly made its way to Kento, if not for his quick reaction. Kento blocks Colt's flurry of attacks. However, he cannot counter him and gets overwhelmed by a slash. Kento is defeated, leaving the winner to be Colt and his monkey-like reflexes. Jillick, the hater, is finally entertained because he just got to see Kento get tossed. Colt wants to lay waste to more fighters and doesn't expect that he'd be teamed up with Isaac instead. Kento, on the other hand, suffered a significant loss when he was caught off guard by his opponent. Reinhardt claims that if only he had reacted calmly, then Kento would have scored an easy victory. For example, in the fight against Isaac, Colt is easily seen through and overwhelmed by Isaac's calm demeanor. Kento realizes that it wasn't actually a difference in skill, but rather his own mistake that beat him. Reinhardt emphasizes that Colt doesn't know anything about the fundamentals and only relies on tricks. Kento thinks that perhaps this was a great lesson in failure for him. Donovan concludes that Kento should be ready to fight him again. Isaac, this time, is prepared ferociously. The battle begins, and Isaac has his eyes carefully locked on his body. Isaac thinks that he's definitely going to get to the next class if he wins this battle. The stakes are too high, and he doesn't want to lose. Mule is worried about Kento's victory, while Jillick is glad because the odds are stacked in Kento's favor. Their battle is disrupted by Mule, who accidentally distracts Kento. Isaac proceeds to attack Kento while he's off balance. Kento blocks the heavy attack and barely evades the strike. However, Isaac manages to deliver such a heavy hit across his arm that it disarms his sword, and I mean that literally. Isaac wins, leaving Kento a whining mess after that forceful attack. Kento finds himself stinging from the pain, while Isaac questions what they should do. He suggests taking Kento to the infirmary because they're sure he broke his arm. Kento realizes that it's actually shattered and is forced to use a tinge of healing magic to recover his body. Jillick blames his stupidity for looking elsewhere in a fight. Isaac recommends Kento stop moving his arm. However, since he's already healed it, Kento assures him that he's okay. Kento is ready to fight again and requests Donovan that they should resume the training. Reinhardt reminds him not to focus on the defensive alone. Since Kento hasn't had the experience of an actual fight, he's finding it challenging to act appropriately. Kento thinks that he definitely needs a proper training session with Reinhardt to give him a taste of a real battle. For now, he manages to defeat 3 opponents back to back. With his 3 opponents defeated, Kento is given access to Donovan's next class. Kento is surprised that Donovan allowed him another chance. His instructor reminds him that the forthcoming courses will be even more difficult, so he should do his best. Kento thinks that instead of being happy, he should be praying for what's to come. After his training, Reinhardt recommends the boy speed up, since many people are following him. The followers in question are all Kento's previous mates, who refuse to join the combat training session. They ditched the training session after all, so they've been secretly observing Kento's progress. Kento asks what they should be doing. Kento returns to the inn, but his stalkers are unconvinced, because they think he is going there to do special training. They wonder about the kind of training Kento is conducting. Manon and Rednell are convinced that he's being coached by someone powerful. Kento is dying of annoyance because his so-called coach is a damn warrior skeleton, and his so-called training ground is actually the hellish demon forests. Kento tells Amanda that he'll be gone for a bit to practice his sword. As usual, the worried Amanda suggests him against the dungeon. Kento goes outside and swings his sword leisurely with terrible form. He tries to show his atrocious movements to the others. Amanda and Melissa think that he's gone completely insane. Kento claims that he's doing special training, and states that they're actually special moves. Yeah, right, special moves that you'd show off while drunk at a bar, but not in a fight. Kento acts like a flop and an idiot in one, calling himself a damn master. Manon and Rednell are baffled because they're unsure of his moves. Reinhardt thinks that he might be an awful person for gaslighting the crap out of these guys. Later at night, Kento arrives for his actual training session with Reinhardt, this time requesting the warrior to take the fight seriously. Kento thinks that the only way to survive Donovan's training is to learn faster against a viciously strong opponent. Reinhardt initiates his attack, which is already going full throttle. Reinhardt's first few attacks are way too fast for Kento to even catch up. Reinhardt tells him that they'll be strict as hell in their training regimen. Instead of running away and getting cold feet, Kento welcomes the training. After an intense and brutal training session, Kento is exhausted, while Reinhardt is actually impressed with the boy's work ethic, even comparing it to other warriors, who barely have the capacity to train all day. Kento thinks he's still cutting slack. Reinhardt believes they'll be capable of finishing training in 2 weeks. Before returning, the boy insists on practicing his magic. He has noticed that light magic takes a while to activate in offensive maneuvers. Kento deploys a timer and learns that it takes him 30 seconds to use an attack, comparable to the average magician. Even though the attack is powerful, the charge up will allow his opponents to kill him in 48 different ways. Reinhardt recommends that he think of it as if he were drawing about it. Kento visualizes the motion and gestures his body in that direction. Having made these adjustments, Kento launches the same strike in 3 seconds, which significantly reduces his activation time. Before Kento is about to leave, a surge of demonic monsters pops out of nowhere after the fuss he caused. This time, the ogres have brought a special guest with them. The Ogre King is a higher level monster, which is usually hard to beat. Kento prepares for the battle and charges his finger beam, quickly taking down the Ogre King in a single strike. Then, Kento proceeds to assassinate the remaining ogres with a single pointed attack. He thinks that even his light magic is a hack, allowing him to win in no time and effort. Reinhardt is utterly speechless, stating how he was able to take down many opponents in a few seconds. Reinhardt is out here simping for his master's abilities, believing him to be truthfully powerful. Kento munches on his food. Melissa wonders if he's busy doing something at night that requires him to consume so much. Kento tries to ward off suspicions, while Amanda asks where he's headed to work. Kento explains he's going to the construction site of the city walls. Melissa is still suspicious of him. The walls of the city have been expanded, with the original town remaining a square-shaped structure. The construction site is always in need of workers. Kento notices that they're directly hired, without going through the process of a guild. Kento meets Claus, who is surprised to see Kento around, and asks about his job. Kento tells him that he wants to return the city's favor by working on its development. Claus is glad and tells him they'll work together. Kento is shocked that even the city's lord works in the construction. Kento jumps into the job with excitement, but he doesn't expect it to be so hard. Claus is asked how he's able to do all of this work while being a lord. Claus tells the boy that it's necessary to see things for yourself through practical experience. Kento thought that perhaps the Lord just wanted to speed up development. Claus explains that he does want to prepare Volzard to become a safer city. The demon forest is a concern, after all, something that Claus wants to circumvent. He doesn't want monsters to attack all at once. This was the case that happened 25 years ago. A younger Claus saved Amund by slicing down an ogre. He advised her to return to the old town and called out for any survivors. Claus saw 3 giant rock ogres who crushed a man under the rubble. Claus couldn't save his life, feeling frustrated that the monsters rampaged in his city. Donovan, who was also a seasoned warrior at this time, contributed by slaying many monsters. Claus commandeered him and had a hard time defeating the ogres, despite being a high-ranked adventurer himself. The rock ogres were challenging to defeat without many people attacking at the same time. During that battle, Claus was devastated to see his older brother in a terribly wounded state. Claus cared for his brother, demanding Donovan to fetch a healer. His brother told him that he couldn't be saved, and that he wanted Claus to carry on the task of protecting Volzard. That day, Claus had lost his brother, and while they were able to defeat the monsters, Claus wanted to prevent the possibility of something like that happening again. Kento thinks about how easy it was for him to beat the rock ogre only last night with a single attack. This has made him ponder about his abilities, questioning if he's an A-ranked adventurer himself. Claus explains that rock ogres are dangerous creatures, boasting larger bodies and strength compared to typical beasts. Even spears can't penetrate its thick skin. Claus is confident that even 6 people with Jillick's strength would find it challenging to defeat the rock ogres. Kento is baffled, because he could beat the monster pretty quickly on his own. Claus thinks that he got scared, not knowing that this dude literally killed a group of ogres without breaking a sweat. Kento remembers Reinhardt effortlessly bashing the ogres like they were nothing. He's pretty glad that Reinhardt is on his side instead of the monsters. The following day, Kento arrives at the guild, surprised to face a large crowd. Kento asks the receptionist why everyone is fighting for a quest. The older man claims that the highest quest reward boasts 200 helts, causing the commotion. Manon greets Kento, which makes him remember the absurdly embarrassing motions that he made in order to fool the group. Manon questions if Kento is also searching for a job. Manon tells him that he started looking for a job as well, and takes the big step of asking Kento for a cooperative quest. Reinhardt thinks that the stalker group is trying to get closer to Kento to investigate the source of his strength. Kento realizes what's going on. Both of them are afraid to navigate through the crowd for a quest. Rednell, on the other hand, is barely making his way through. Kento states that he's getting bored, while Manon observes him with a keen eye. Kento doesn't know what he's doing, which embarrasses him. Kento asks the kind of job Manon usually likes to do. Manon is fine with whatever Kento wants to choose. They decided to become apprentice gardeners in the meantime. The gardener's house was located outside the city. The gardener had issued a request because he wanted more men to help clean the Lord's mansion. Together, the 4 of them arrived at Claus' gigantic mansion. They were instructed to pull out weeds. Kento remembers his time at school receiving punishment. He knows the exact technique with the tool, and speed runs the entire process. Manon is shocked, while Gardner compliments the boy's work ethic. Manon is way too slow, but it's natural for anyone who isn't Kento. Claus, Volzard's lord, meets the boy again after yet another professional switch. Claus bursts into laughter, and thinks that Kento's experience of becoming a jack of all trades is bound to become helpful in the future. Claus introduces his daughter, Beatrice, a beautiful girl who steals this man's heart. She dons gorgeous red hair and a charming look. At first, it seems like Claus is playing the ultimate wingman for Kento to marry his daughter. But then you realize that this man is ready to kill Kento if he even looks in her general direction. Beatrice doesn't want her dad to ruin the experience. She introduces herself nicely to Kento. Claus is in the mood to become a murderer, all in the name of his daughter. After the job, Kento takes a breath of relief as he's more exhausted by their conversation than by doing the actual work. Manon stares at him with deadpan eyes. Oren, the gardener, is rewarding them with a special dinner. Kento wants to take a bath when he suddenly stumbles into Manon and realizes that this man is actually not a man at all. After the incident, Manon is shocked that his dumbass couldn't realize that she was a girl this entire time. The gardeners chime in for Kento's support because, technically, he didn't know any better. Manon is still fed up with his act, while Kento is internally enjoying the drama. He finds the food worthwhile, while Manon notes that Kento's a heavy eater. He tries to deliver advice in the most offhanded way possible, receiving a state of disgust from Manon. After the meal, Kento decides to help Manon walk her home. Manon appreciates the gesture and directly asks about the source of his strength. She gives him a cute look, forcing down his defenses. Kento is barely able to avoid revealing his secret training. Manon is shocked to learn that he's been training with Jillick. She doesn't know why Jillick would practice with him, which he never would, considering Jillick is this dude's #1 hater. Kento thinks about Mule taking classes tomorrow, which means Jillick will also show up. Kento will use Donovan to conduct a sparring match between them. Kento recommends Manon train harder to surpass her peers. Returning home, Kento shares with Reinhardt that he will persuade his allies by telling them that Jillick is responsible for his strength. But even so, with the rematch with Jillick pending, Kento is going full throttle in his training with Reinhardt. Even though Kento barely has a chance to respond to Reinhardt's attacks, their training session concludes at last. Kento is curious why the demons rarely pop up, considering they're in the hellish forest. Just from nearby, a bunch of ogres accompanied by a rock ogre are seen in the distance. Kento prepares his shot, ready to hunt the monsters. He doesn't want Reinhardt to intervene and finally takes aim. In a single strike, Kento is able to shoot down all 5 of the creatures. Then, he takes his aim at the rock ogre, defeating the final creature with one focused attack. Even though Reinhardt thinks his attack power is impressive, Kento says he should focus on making adjustments. Kento wonders about Klaus's words, since rock ogres are popping up frequently. Kento wonders if there is something wrong with the forest. Reinhardt claims that demons vary depending on the territory within the forest. Since they're quite deep, the rock ogres are appearing more often. Reinhardt tends to collect magic stones, allowing Kento to get his sleep hours to rejuvenate for the upcoming battle. The following day, Manon meets up with Kento. He finds Manon cute, making her feel embarrassed. Jillick, the ultimate hater, is here. Kento asks about Mule, and he responds like he usually does. Kento wants to leave to accompany Mule, but is stopped by Jillick, who doesn't want to let him get in Mule's way. Jillick drags Kento all the way to Donovan, who wonders if they're going to train together again. It seems that Kento's provocation worked like a jackpot, since Jillick wants to train with Kento again. Donovan gives Jillick a piece of his mind, while Kento sneakily giggles because things are going just as planned. In the training grounds, Donovan is expecting to see improvements from Kento in this rematch against Jillick. Jillick is prepared to fight the armored Kento, who looks like a harmless kitten, if anything. Jillick provokes him to attack. Kento is seen preparing an attack. Jillick thinks he's way too slow and tries to kick him away. Kento is able to evade the strike, countering with a decisive slash and forcing Jillick to block the attack with his blade. Jillick returns a blow, reminding Kento not to get ahead of himself. However, Kento is a moment faster and defeats him with a powerful attack. The hater has been defeated at last. Kento is glad that he was able to defeat Jillick while he was off guard. Mule had appeared to cheer them on. Manon isn't pleased to see Kento obsessing over Mule's looks. The second fight of the day involves Manon against Jillick. Kento teases Jillick for trying too hard against a girl who can barely stand on her 2 feet. Jillick ends up defeating her with ease. Once again, Kento is supposed to face Jillick. This time, Jillick even praises Kento, who is ready to take the beating. Jillick follows with a slash and gets blocked by Kento, even though his movements are way faster than last time. Jillick overwhelms Kento, questioning where his confidence went. Kento is at risk of a loss with Jillick's heavy attacks. Jillick pops up from behind, a spot that Kento didn't expect when he was defending himself blankly from the front. Jillick delivers a potent strike, defeating Kento in a single attack. It was powerful enough to break Kento's ribs, forcing him to the ground. Kento deploys healing magic and recovers like new. However, Donovan has finally caught wind of something. He was already suspicious of the boy's powers when he recovered against Isaac, but now he's sure something is wrong. Donovan drags the boy, suspecting that he's a spy from under Camelia's command. Baston urgently informs him about an ogre attack approaching from the demon forests. Donovan is told the same news. This is the worst time for them to attack, especially when he's already suspicious of the pipsqueak. Donovan eats this man into a room, instructing him to stay put until he returns. A man is seen running away from an ogre before getting his head crushed in its mouth. The gruesome sight of the ogre raid has prompted a response from Volzard's men. Baston accompanies Kento now that he's attracted suspicion from Donovan. Kento asks for an update on the ogre situation. The ogres are estimated to be over 200 in number, with Hone rock ogres in between. Kento thinks that it will be overwhelming for the adventurers to handle. Baston confirms the case. Kento thinks that they'll be the ones to handle the threat. He requests Fred's backup. Finally, the 3 skeleton monsters are summoned together to save the city from the ogre raid. Meanwhile, the magicians are failing to slow them down. These level 10 garbage mages can't even slow them down. The ogres climb up like this is Attack on Titan or some crap. The city guards get squashed, but they're able to defend against some of them using the hardened balls. The city guards are hellbent on ensuring the ogres don't raid the inside of the town. However, a ferocious rock ogre climbs up, leaving a haunting sight among the men. They try to attack it using the rocks, but it's pretty ineffective. In the end, the rock ogre tosses the man to its underlings, where they shred him to pieces as their meal. Kento, who is observing the haunting sight from above, finds himself traumatized from certain memories. The reason he could capably defeat the ogres was because of his sniping advantage. But now, these ogres are ferociously wrecking the city. Humans are like cattle to them. Reinhardt tells his master that his inaction will only breed more sacrifices. Everyone that Kento cares about in the city will be at risk of death. The skeletons want their master to issue an order. Kento greets the situation with a smile, ordering his skeletons to crush every last one of them. They're pumped to enter battle, being the battle-hungry skeletons they are. Baston and Reinhardt engage in a competition to rack up many kills. All three of them impressively defeat the monsters, while Kento teleports, using his shadow travel skill to do what he can. Kento manages to kill the brown ogre using his concentrated light magic attack. With the main boss monster defeated on the ground, the city guards are shocked as to how something like this could be defeated at once. Kento aims to ensure no one in the city gets hurt. With more ogres climbing the city walls, the city guards think they're doomed because of their numbers. The ogres are all killed, thanks to Kento's stealthy use of sniping. With the ogres being crushed one after the other, Donovan observes the sight of the skeletons ripping apart the ogres. He wonders if they're genuinely supporting Volzard. Donovan finds their sudden appearance in the battle to be rather strange, as they emerge out of nowhere to fight. After a long battle with the ogres, all 200 of the monsters end up being slaughtered. While Manon and the others are relaxing, Kento is thoroughly exhausted and finds himself knocked out. When Kento wakes up, he is startled to see Donovan, who drags the boy and tosses him in front of Claus. Claus has been updated on the news regarding the boy's involvement. Claus questions if someone like him could really be working for Camellia. Donovan thinks that he's just one of those guys who doesn't want to reveal himself. Claus interrogates the boy, questioning his true identity. Kento internalizes that he is going to grow a relationship with him eventually. Kento breaks the ice by claiming that he was summoned to the world by Camellia, and that he's from another world. Claus and Donovan are both shocked by this sudden admission. The boy tells them about the story of what happened, and how he ended up in the city. After a long-winded explanation, he also told them about his powers, including his healing magic. Claus realizes that he's capable of exercising both light and dark attribute magic at will. The boy confirms the case, and reveals that it is the reason his magic couldn't be detected. Donovan is stumped to find out Kento's involvement, as the skeletons were directly under his command. Claus had already heard about the appearance of skeletal monsters being seen around by a few people. Kento apologizes, so Claus questions if the skeletons are indeed under his command. Kento tells him that his creatures won't spiral out of control, even though Donovan thinks that monsters will remain monsters. Kento declares that they're his family, and that he's confident in trusting them. Donovan advises him to register the creatures as monsters under his command. This way, he wouldn't have to worry about them being seen in the town. Kento continues his story of how he came to Volzard, lied about his identity for his own preservation. He wants their help in saving his classmates. Claus tells the boy to raise his head, and pays Kento the respect he deserves for truly saving Volzard and its people from the attack of ruthless ogres. Kento thinks it's too much for him, but Claus believes otherwise.